The argument from the other side is that sexual orientation is immutable and unchangeable. We already talked about this yesterday. And first of all, there was never any reason to believe that. Okay, this idea that you're born gay or whatever.
We've rolled back decades of progress in women's rights, so it only makes sense to bring back the backwards thinking that being gay is a choice or a mistake that needs to be fixed. Just quickly before I get into the rest of that story, my question for you, Matt Walsh, is do you choose to be straight every day? Do you wake up and you have to choose not to be gay? I don't think that's something you would want to admit to, but maybe ruminate on that idea for a while and realize that you are a complete and utter imbecile who is not capable of any type of critical thinking whatsoever. Now, Matt Walsh made these comments in his argument defending conversion therapy, which should, always be referred to as conversion torture. Because therapy is a word that's meant to make it seem nicer than what it is. It is torture. He's saying that anyone tortured by being gay and wants to be straight should have the freedom to seek that help. Being gay is the torture, not the torture that they put the people through at these conversion torture sites. Now, we'll talk about how conversion torture doesn't work, but first, here is his ridiculous argument.
A person's sexual preferences and tastes can absolutely be affected by all manner of things. Trauma, abuse, exposure to pornography from a young age. Many things can impact a person's sexual preferences. I mean, this is not really disputed by any serious person. There is no gay gene, no matter how hard they look for one. And the idea that people are born gay has always been incoherent because, if people are born gay, like born gay, you're gay from birth, right? That's what that would mean. And then that means that there are homosexual infants out there? Again, no sane person thinks that. So there's no reason why a person can't seek and receive successful counseling to overcome same-sex attraction.
The lack of gay babies implies straight babies, which is disconcerting coming from someone who said things like this in Matt Walsh's own words. So to all of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, to act like it's a new thing is ridiculous. It's always been like that way. Girls between the ages of 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile. Aside from the fact that that's not true, it is extremely creepy coming from Matt Walsh, who has made his entire brand his obsession with the genitalia of children. But again, the concept of there being a gay baby is silly because the concept of there being a straight baby is silly. Don't force adult sexual ideas onto infants who have no concept of sexuality. When you're when your daughter becomes friends with a boy in kindergarten, don't call her his girlfriend. Don't call him her boyfriend. That's just as creepy. The idea that this is limited to gay people is just plain and simple homophobia. Now, let's start with the simpler fact at hand before a crash course for Matt Walsh on sexuality. Conversion therapy, conversion torture. It does not work. Now, there are many meta-analysis on the various studies, but here's the findings from a Coventry University study that was published online by the UK government. Main findings from that: there is no robust evidence that conversion therapy can achieve its stated therapeutic aim of changing sexual orientation or gender identity. The types of practices tend to be similar for conversion therapy for sexual orientation and for gender identity. For example, talking therapies delivered by faith groups or mental health professionals. Conversion therapies were associated with self-reported harms among research participants who had experienced conversion therapy for sexual orientation and for gender identity. For example, negative health effects like depression and feeling suicidal. There is indicative evidence from the surveys that transgender respondents were as likely or more likely to be offered and receive conversion therapy than non-transgender, lesbian, gay, or bisexual respondents. And acts of physical, psychological, and sexual abuse, electrocution, and forced medication, isolation, and confinement, verbal abuse, and humiliation are all examples of the barbaric practice. And it's by no means eradicated from the United States. Here's a map that shows how many states still allow conversion therapy. Now, I'll just bring you in here, Senator Turner, because these people are the thought leaders for the right wing. These people who project their ignorance as the source of pride, they wear their hate as a badge of honor. That is the first thing that comes out of their mouth in all of their videos. These are the thought leaders for the conservative movement in this country. He is sitting there smugly advocating for torturing gay people out of being gay. And we've seen the rollbacks and protections for, many minority groups, including the LGBTQ community in this country, based on someone who has no expertise, not just on, gay people, in any subject, no subject. Matt Walsh is cited to by state legislators as a source of information. This is a man who has no education on this topic. He's only, the only thing that gives him credentials is that he's a hateful bigot that's been platformed by the Daily Wire.
Well, Rayyvana, it pays. I mean, grifter's got a grift. He's a con man. And wow, I mean, what a contradiction to call him and others thought leaders, Ray. I mean, we need to snatch that back. We need to snatch that back. He is not a thought leader. He's a grifter, and he makes a lot of money for this grift. And I just want to know from Matt Walsh, why is he so preoccupied with babies and sexuality? I just want to know that, because your point was well taken. I mean, little kindergartners, 2-year-olds, I got a 2-year-old in my life and a 4-year-old. They not walking around, talking about sexuality. They are overlaying adult thoughts about sexuality on the kids, and it makes no sense. But his preoccupation with babies and little children and sexuality is a bit creepy. Maybe he needs some therapy, Ray. That's what I'm gonna say. He needs some therapy.
Some real therapy, not the kind of therapy that he advocates for, because I don't think anyone should have to endure that kind of torture. It's sick, but there's definitely something not right going on with his mind. I mean, he's made a career out of talking about kids' genitalia. This is someone who I've heard on multiple occasions describe trans boys getting mastectomies as removing the healthy breasts of teenage girls, which is a gross thing for you to be thinking of at all. I mean, those comments about wanting 16-year-olds to be having babies. This is a sick man, right? This is a sick man that projects his sickness onto everybody else. He's got to cast the entire gay community in a negative light because he has these negative and gross thoughts. And I'll just say, just to that point about putting adult ideas on children, I've never seen any, drag shows, drag book readings for children. They're reading books that are age appropriate. They're wearing clothes that are appropriate. They're wearing oftentimes princess dresses. It's fun and it's geared towards children. But I mean, just the other month, I was on a plane and a baby was turning around and waving at the lady behind him. And after the flight, the woman said, "Oh, is that your son or daughter?" She goes, "Oh, it's my son." And she said, "Oh, I knew that because he was flirting with me." Ma'am, that is a baby. That is a baby. I see a lot of straight people pushing these ideas of sexuality on babies and children. I don't see queer people who oftentimes just want their kids to be able to grow up to be who they want to be themselves. I don't see them enforcing these same sort of weird ideas on children. And it's gross. And it's not cute. It's not endearing. That was just gross. It left me with a nasty taste in my mouth.
Yeah, it's insanity. I mean, really, we all need some collective therapy. But seriously, Matt Walsh's preoccupation with this stuff is very telling. He may have some inadequacies that he's covering up, and so he wants to make everybody else the scapegoat. But yeah, I can't believe that the baby is flirting with you. Give me a damn break, really.
All right, let the baby be a baby.
Let the baby be a damn baby. How about that? Right, my grandmother used to have a saying, you got a long time to be grown and a little while to be a child. And man, I tell you, the more seasoned I become, the more that wisdom of hers really means a lot. And we do live in a society where children are not allowed, for various reasons, to just be children.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.